Welcome, friends! This is episode 15 of my Enigmatica 2 Expert Extended playthrough series, and last time we figured out the way to produce Spectre coils, which is of course a neat little devices that generate 32 RF per tick, and they can be used as sort of set and forget power source for all of your small local power needs, and we have used them to power our very first automated ore and material processing station. Last episode had a lot of attention and you have left a great amount of very good comments, but two of them specifically made very interesting points I would like to discuss here. The first comment is by someone by the name Radek, and he basically said that when I was talking about the wind generator in the last episode, I told it generates 80 FRF per tick, and this is not true. This is the maximum output by the wind generator, and the amount actually generated is the number in the middle, the power stat, which currently reads 57.14. And since my current generator sits at the level Y81, I went back to my starter base, built this tower, and then placed this second wind generation at the Y coordinate 250. As you can see, it's spinning like crazy, but despite that, the power stat is actually lower, at 44.8. I then went down to the bedrock, and there my wind generator spins awfully slow, but generates 60 RF per tick. So at this point the trend is opposite of what I would expected. The higher you place the wind generator, the faster the blades spin, but at the same time the energy generation is smaller. I started looking through Enigmatica 2 Expert Extended Discord, and sure enough, several months ago someone brought up this issue to the Modpack author Krutoy242, and he definitely said that this is an unexpected behavior. So thank you so much, Radek, for bringing this issue to my attention, and I definitely learned something new today. The next comment is from Danila, and Danila was talking about my setup for the obsidian. And when I was making it, I was thinking that something doesn't sit right with me when I was building it. Well, this is because that I forgot that you can make similar setup, which is much more easier than what I built over there. So in this case, all you do is you pump the lava from the tank into the stone barrel, and the water on top of it makes the lava transform into obsidian, and it's getting pushed into the barrel. In this setup as well, it is limited by the lava production, just like my setup over there. So there is nothing wrong with this setup. However, this one, and Daniel is absolutely right, is much easier to set up, and you can put this down earlier in the game. So thank you, Daniela, for mentioning this. I personally love how engaging you are, so if you have any questions, suggestions, or just want to stop by and say hi, I really welcome you in the comments below. But going back to our world, I am constantly updating the pack to the latest version, which at this point is 1.24.2. You can see that compared to my previous episode, couple things have changed. First of all, you don't see the radiation bar in the bottom right corner anymore. And this is because the radiation damage from a different radioactive blocks was disabled in a pack. I personally like the struggle of dealing with radiation. However, I do understand that the radiation spread and radiation contaminating the chunks and nearby chunks uses a little bit of calculation power of your processor, and not everybody enjoys that struggle, so I understand this change. And the second change is the map in the top right corner. The Journey Map mod was replaced with Xairos Minimap and Xairos World Map. And if you are curious about the reasons for the map change, then the Modpack author Krutoy242 mentioned in the Discord that in his opinion it's faster, is less buggy, has more features, and is actively supported. And I'm not sure about all the features of this map mod, however it's interesting that it loads up all the chunks you have ever visited, so this is the map of everything we ever discovered before. And not only that, but you can also switch to the cave mode over here, pick a very specific Y level you want to look at, and you will see a slice of the world, the whole world we discovered at this Y level, and examine it, and you can find interesting features which I'm not even sure what these are. For example, here there is something colored very bright blue. I have no idea what this is. And right here, just southwest of us, we can see one and then a second one underground underground tunnel structure we can visit, and then to the north of us we see something which looks like a dungeon. Very interesting. But going back to our pack progression, the most interesting thing is that we have cleared our progress board by crafting the Spectre Coil last time. Last time I have asked you to guess what would be the next big thing on a progress board, and right away Toast on Rye, who is an awesome YouTuber and longtime Minecraft player, guessed that that could be something related to AE2, and he is absolutely right. Because for the foreseeable future I would like to craft ME controller. Here is the rough path we will need to take. We will go through 3 stages. First we will work in the area of industrial foregoing, getting pink slime, and then machine frames for RF tools and thermal expansion. When that's done, the second stage would be progressing through thermal expansion to get to the Ender IO mod through machine chassis. And once there, we will finally progress through Ender IO mod in the third stage and work towards ME controller. Of course we will get side missions along the way. This pack is really diverse and many things are strongly intertwined, but still, most of the diversions should aid us on our quest to the elaborate applied Energistics 2 system, which starts with a good old ME controller. And so before we begin working on industrial foregoing questline, I would like to complete 2 side tasks which I think are critical for the ME controller. One of them going through the computers chapter, because this chapter will allow us to build the computers to control our more diverse and complex setups, and then robots which can trade, use items, kill mobs for us, move stuff around, and mine stuff, which will help us tremendously along the way. The other thing, and I believe we should start with it, is the Ender chest. And I'm talking about Ender chest from Ender Storage, which is similar to regular Minecraft Ender chests in that it can pass items between 2 or more similarly color-coded chests over large distances and across dimensions. And of course, this will help us transfer the items which are produced elsewhere back to our base way over there without using any of the pipe systems. I think that was enough planning for one day. Let's get started. The first thing, of course, is to craft the Ender chest, and the Ender chest has several components. One of them, obsidian, we just discussed a second ago. The next component is the essence from Ant Reborn, and if we take a look at the recipe, of course we can buy it from Villager. However, the most straightforward recipe is to break essence ore block, and as you can see, essence ore could be crafted if you pour molten obsidian over the Lormite stone, and Lormite stone can be crafted from Lormite crystals. The Lormite crystal is a part of our sifting setup for crushed sandstone, and even if the other parts of the sifting building are in shambles because the recipes changed and I haven't updated the building, the Lormite crystal production is still going, and we have about 8 stacks of it. I have crafted 32 Lormite stones, and of course we'll be using our automated smeltery to pour obsidian over it. While this is happening, the next component is of course Eye of Ender that requires Ender Pearls, and our Ender farm is progressing quite nicely, except I believe that we should really automate it. And we can do this by using XNet controller. You can see the connections underground going to all of our farms. This system is powered by 14 Spectre coils, which is more than enough for our current needs, and all of the farming produce is extracted to this drawer controller and distributed through these drawers right here. Currently we have about 13 stacks of Ender Pearls, which is more than enough. However, for the Ender chest, we also need some blaze powder. One of the best ways to produce blaze powder is of course kill blazes for the blaze rods. However, we will probably do that automation in the industrial foregoing chapter, and for now I think the fastest way to collect some blaze powder is just go to the desert and find some cinder pearls, because each of them is converted to 1 blaze powder. And it is also good to venture forth in the deserts and wastelands, because they are home to the modest hives which we can collect for the bee queens. And of course, once you start traveling in Minecraft, you can't just stop and not admire all these towering peaks and interesting valleys. And I also came up onto the structure like this. And what's interesting to me, that some of the obsidian embedded into the structure is actually essence ore that we can collect. We can see things like this giant sea serpent, which I'm not sure I want to engage right now. I also found a couple Cyclops abodes, but this seems like almost like cheating. Because of my armor, he keeps exploding and pretty much I can kill him very easily. Last thing I discovered on my journey is this beautiful chapel in this sandstone village, and our inventory is completely full, so I think it's time for us to come back home. Back at the base, we can take stock of what we have collected in our travels, and it was quite interesting. We got some interesting things like a couple tier 3 storage modules, which can hold up to 300 stacks of items. We can upgrade our storage facility with those. I got some machine parts, then inventory charges, and then I'm not even sure what these liquids are used for. Dew of the Void and nutrient distillation. We'll have to take a look at these. Then I have collected a bunch of bee queens, and as you can see, most of them are from ignoble stock, which means they will die off after a couple generations. But then we got 2 pristine ones, so that is good. We collected about 28 manuscript pages from Ice and Fire. That's quite interesting. The main thing, though, we were pursuing were cinder pearls, and we collected 20 of them, which means we can make 20 ender chests now with these. I'll start with 8 though, because we made 32 essence ore, and so we can build 8 ender chests. The next component I would like to tackle is the Wither Ash or Wither Dust. We can use either or. We are back at our starter base, and it's good to be back once in a while. Back in episode 5, we have constructed this Wither Skeleton Spawner, and it works like this. Basically, this is the regular skeleton spawner we brought from our travels. Once the regular skeleton spawns, you can see it fell into the witch water and transformed into Wither Skeleton, and we can kill them for the loot. However, you know me, and I like to simplify things. Back when I was building this base in the valley, I killed a spider and I dropped this spider trophy from open blocks. Right now it doesn't do anything interesting except producing spider sounds. But since the time I have collected this trophy, the Modpack author Krutoy242 added this quest for trophies in the utilities section of the quest line. And an interesting mechanic he added in this quest is that to get the trophy of any entity with the current trophies existing, you have to drop the anvil on the vanilla mob that would stand on the basalt sediment. Basalt sediment can be simply made with a heat exchanger from Pahoho lava, and I actually have a short on my channel which is a 40-second tutorial on how you can make this. But it's quite interesting because since I already have the spider trophy, I can do a very convenient shortcut. We can now go finish the quest and collect a piece of basalt sediment. Thank you, little spider. Since we have a little more progress compared to episode 5, we can actually simplify things for us by creating a barrier stone, and it can be done in the arcane workbench. And if the recipe doesn't work for you, don't forget that you need to take out the Terra V crystals, and then you can use Ignis and Orda to create the barrier stone. If we place 3 barrier stones around the basalt sediment block, then the skeleton cannot get to us. And when the skeleton stands on the basalt sediment, all we need to do is take an anvil. And now we have a Wither Skeleton trophy. Every 20 minutes or every Minecraft day we can right-click the trophy, and then we will get ourselves a Wither Skull. The Wither Skull can be transformed into 9 Wither Dusts, so with that we can make exactly 9 Ender Chests. And of course, later on we are going to automate this, probably with robots, but for now this will be totally enough for us. The next component we need to talk about is a mending moss, and the mending moss can be produced in a fluid tank if we have enough experience, and for that we need to have a ball of moss. And it's made from 8 mossy stones, and you can see that mossy stone can be created just from regular cobblestone if we have enough vines. Well, the vines can be produced from the nature essence. We do have a farm which produces dye essence, nature essence, and slime essence, but it does so haphazardly. So it makes a total sense to move at least the nature essence production toward our automated farming XNet controller system, because all of the connections are there, and we can also speed this up by using Supremium watering can. If you are wondering how did I get my essences and Supremium watering can, you can take a look at episode 9 where I do both. But now we can get 8 stacks of vines and a stack of balls of moss. We can put them in our liquid experience system and they will start converting. If we need to add more, we can stand on this XP drain and our XP will drain into the tank below. But of course, one of the issues with this recipe is that we require about 1/5 of the tank to be full, and because here we have only 2 such tanks in the system, we cannot really preload the system to craft a lot of mending moss in one run. We can take a look at the getting started chapter and see what tanks are available to us. And I think we should go with the iron drum, which stores 256 buckets of fluid and is made from stone drums, which are made from omnivores. Iron drums also require quartz burnt, which needs to be made inside the resonator and uses 80 grid power. All the things we have just discussed are neatly arranged inside the extra utilities chapter in a set of quest lines, so let's do them. Because our base is in the extreme hills and it snows in here, I will go with the manual mill. In this pack, the recipe for the redstone gear is a little bit steep because it requires magical planks. They are made from magical wood, and yes, we can use block cutting machine to get 4 of them. However, still, the magical wood requires a bookshelf, gold ingot, and 4 levels of experience. In terms of experience level, you can see at the bottom of my screen we don't have too much, it's just level 12, and this is because I have recently died by just standing around in my base at night when I was away from the computer, and so we need to get some experience. To do this, we can use some helpful synergies from the traits of Tinker's construct. For example, on my pickaxe I have well-established trait, which makes it so the harvested blocks drop experience, and then on each piece of my armor, as you can see, we have ambitious trait, and this increases the amount of experience we get. Finally, if I place the pickaxe in my main hand and the excavator in the off hand, and I start collecting sand, then it will be collected by the excavator instead of pickaxe, and as you can see, it drops experience. Let's see how quickly we can gain a couple levels. "20 levels for 20 seconds. I think this is pretty good deal. 63 levels. I think we can go fix our shovel and go back home. Back at the base we can spend our newly acquired fortune and send the magical wood to be cutted by the block cutting machine. As you can see, it's working. Since our Ender Lily farm is running smoothly, we can actually make resonating redstone crystals in the industrial quantities now. The first thing we are going to make is the manual mill. And the next thing we'll need to do is the resonator, and note that in the recipe of the resonator, the glass is not just stained glass, but it needs to be specifically chiseled in the Chinese version. We can now proceed to the stone burnt quest by placing the polished stone inside of the resonator and then manually rotating the manual mill. As you can imagine, doing so by hand is quite inconvenient, so let's grab what we have produced up to this point, which is 12 stone burnt, and let's look at the following quest, which talks about the grid power generation level 2. And I say, let us start with the fire mill, which has pretty straightforward recipe. At first we can only get 2 of them. If we place both of these above the netherrack and then set the netherrack on fire, you can see that each of these are generating 4 grid power. Because our fire mills are now producing 8 grid power, you can see that the resonator can happily work on its own, producing stone burnt. And even better, if we speed up the resonator using time in a bottle, you can see that the production speeds up quite nicely. Now that we have a lot of stone burnt, we can craft more of these fire mills. You can see I have placed 10 of them here, and they are all generating 4 grid power each. Look what happens when I place 2 more. As you can see, we have some efficiency loss, in fact 6% efficiency loss, so now each of the fire mills, not just the 2 of the new ones I placed, generate 3.78. And this is also something you can see in the tooltip of the fire mill. As you can see, there is progressive efficiency loss, and this incentivizes you to diversify in the ways you produce grid power. Therefore, let's craft a couple lava mills as well. If you place a source block of lava right next to the lava mill, it will generate 6 grid power to your network. So as you can see, if we take an area 3x4 just like we did with the fire mills, you will get a very similar amount of power. So now we're generating 81.3. Now that we're generating above 80 grid power, we can get into quartz burnt, which as you can see requires 80 grid power to craft and a block of quartz. But before we get into that, I was actually standing around in my base and I let the sun go down, and some zombies around me spawned. One of them was this blight zombie, which has this purple glow around him. So let's kill him. As you can see, he dropped some hurt crystal shards. In the animal section of the quest book, there is actually a quest for the hard dust, and the hard dust can be made from these hard crystal shards we just acquired, and the dust can be used to spawn some interesting and unique mobs. We will surely do this in the future, so I am very happy that we finally got the difficulty level where these blight mobs are starting to spawn. Now back to the quartz burned, let's just load 64 blocks of quartz to be converted. And with that, let's craft 3 stone drums and convert them into 1 iron one. And now this iron drum will be a good replacement for our experience storage. Let us unload all of our 27 levels and go hunt for some more. I am back, and this time let's unload 65 levels. As you can see, we have brought quite a lot of experience, about 200 buckets worth, and now this buffer will be slowly used to convert our balls of moss into the mending moss. Now it seems that we will have a healthy amount of mending moss, and of course ardite can be just mined in the nether. The next component we will talk about is cobwebs. The cobwebs can be crafted from the silk wisps. However, there is another way. Remember how I was talking about that the new map mod we have now in the pack allows us to see that to the northwest of us there is this nice underground mineshaft structure? Well, I have upgraded my old flint hammer to the skystone material, added a couple speed upgrades on it so we can collect cobwebs faster, and I think it's time for us to just go and investigate this deep, dark mineshaft. It looks like there is this cave entrance that just starts right next to our base, and it leads deep down, maybe into the mines. And indeed, as we get deeper and deeper into this cave, I have reached this huge chasm, and I can see some rails down below. These mine shafts have a small amount of cobwebs in them. However, I'm looking for the cave spider spawner, and usually these things have a lot of cobwebs around them. This little section has a lot of cobwebs in it and also a treasure chest. 2 of them actually. However, they seem to be empty. And this area right here actually explains what are these bright cyan colored areas on my map down below. Turns out these are glowsalium from quark, and these apparently grow these glow shrooms on them. If we collect one and look at the uses, it turns out that we can brew potions of danger sight using these mushrooms. We can also collect the glowsalium itself. And if we look at the uses of the glowsalium, turns out we can use it in the enrichment chamber to get bliss powder. I think this is pretty good. This particular mineshaft structure is really impressive. You can see it spans vast distances, and one thing I would like to point out is that if you look at the map, you can see these bright yellow dots here on the map, and these bright yellow dots are the white candles I have been putting as I was exploring the map. So you can actually go into the level mode and you can scroll over the levels and you see these bright dots appearing everywhere, and this gives you these breadcrumbs. You kind of know where you actually explored. So I know I covered most of the structure, but still I have collected only 36 cobwebs, and mainly because I still didn't find the spawner of the cave spider. But you know, exploring this mineshaft was quite fun, and I just noticed that over here there is another one deep underground. And this area is interesting to explore because this is right under my base, just to the south of my base, so let's check it out. In this case, I just dug a hole straight down from the surface and I hit the mineshaft. You should keep an eye on your surroundings in the caves. Finally, I think we will get a reward for our curiosity because I have found a cave spider spawner surrounded by a bunch of cobwebs. What I like about candles, besides them being very bright, is that you can actually drop the candle below you because it drops like a sand. So if you put against the block, the candle will fall down, and by doing so you can light an area around the spawner to prevent the mobs from spawning from it. The chest in the spider room is actually full with loot, and it contains, among other things, the essence from End Reborn, which we need for our ender chests. And here I found another of these rooms, and it also contains 2 treasure chests, and one of them actually contains mysterious token fragment from Rat's mod. Nice. Back at the base, we can take stock of what I have collected, and as you can see, I got almost exactly 2 stacks of cobwebs, and if we look at the recipe, this means that we can make 64 of these ender chests, and because initially the amount of these I need is not that much, this is more than enough for us. The last component of the ender chest is Enderium nugget, and obviously for that we would need Enderium, but as you look at our progress board, you might think, well, the thermal expansion is ways away, how are we going to make Enderium, which is from thermal expansion mod? Well, interestingly, you can make Enderium ingot if you cast molten Enderium into the ingot cast, and molten Enderium can be made through alloying of platinum, pulsating iron, and resonant ender. Let's see if we can make all of these components without actually going to the thermal expansion. First, let's talk about the platinum ore. Platinum ore spawns in pretty small quantities close to the bedrock in the overworld, and I already actually have a single piece of platinum ore, which I dug out at some point in the beginning of my run. If we place this block, then we can use a scanner module block to right-click on it, then we can put the scanner module inside the scanner, and if we scan, we can see that the block of platinum becomes highlighted, and this will allow us to find more when we get mining close to the bedrock. This is how it looks like if we scan for platinum underground. As you can see, they are few and far in between. However, just mining around, we can discover some more platinum ore. I have brought 12 of this platinum ore back. Let's send it for processing. And now look into the next component, which is molten pulsating iron. And of course you can get pulsating iron from the alloying kiln if you smelt iron ingot and enderite dust together. And enderite dust can be made by grinding eyes of ender. And if you use some of the machines, then you can get 20% of your blaze powder back. We can set up our alloy kiln right next to our high oven and prepare 9 pulsating iron. The last component we need to worry about is resonant ender. With our technological advancement level, the best place to get resonant ender is to smelt ender pearls, which we get from our ender pearl farm, inside the melter from nuclear craft. Thankfully, we have the whole chapter devoted to nuclear craft, which will guide us, and in order to get there, we will unlock this nuclear craft gate by crafting basic plating inside the packager. We have resources available, so let's just craft a stack of these. As a reward, we get advanced plating and basic voltaic pile. The nuclear craft. When I played Enigmatica to Expert, I loved this mod, and I believe in this pack it is slightly different. We'll play with it at some point, but right now I will just beeline to the melter. The first thing we'll make is alloy furnace, which has a pretty simple recipe which requires basic plating and the stuff from Industrial Craft 2. However, one thing it also requires is bioplastic, and that is made inside the enrichment chamber from sugar canes. We don't really grow sugar canes, however we have nature essence, so we can craft some. And just like with many other things I do when I do them for the first time, for the bioplastic, I'm actually adding the automated export rule for the sugar canes, and then I process a little bit more than I need, in this case 2 stack, so we don't have to worry when we'll need a little bit more of these things in the future. Now we can make ourselves alloy furnace and start working on the melter, and the melter requires machine chassis from nuclear craft, which can be made from steel ingot, lead ingot, and then this tough alloy ingot. Molten tough alloy can be smelted in our trusty smeltery from molten lithium and molten ferroboron, while molten ferroboron itself is an alloy of molten boron and steel. So besides the steel, the tough alloy recipe relies on us finding boron ore and lithium ore, which have pretty similar distribution in the overworld, with a maximum at about Y level 9, and this is because in the world both of these ores tend to spawn toward the bedrock, and they spawn in these huge veins, which include actually the lithium, the boron, and then thorium ore as well. I was digging around for the resources underground, and I stumbled on these ore veins kinda randomly. However, the problem with this particular ore vein is that it ends abruptly with this huge underground lake, so it is pretty small. Luckily, this is absolutely no problem at all, because when you find one of these veins, you can use the scanner module block to scan, for example, the thorium ore. We can scan our surroundings and immediately see that, for example, here there is another big ore vein nearby. I have dug around to uncover some of these veins to show you, first of all, the fourth ore you can find in them, the magnesium ore, and then just to highlight the sheer size of these veins, that when you have found one, you can actually collect a lot of ore. Also, while we are here, I wanted to show one cool thing about the Silk Touch spell, which we crafted in episode 13. So when you're underground and digging for these special ores, and some of them are too high up and you cannot reach them, you can use the Silk Touch to drop them on the ground and collect them there without the need to build a pillar or a ladder to get there. Back at the base, we can send all of the ores that we have collected to the processing. But actually, we don't have to wait too long, because all we need to finish the melter quest is 2 pieces of crushed boron ore and 1 of crushed lithium. Because we will use 2 ferroboron alloys to create the servo mechanism, 1 tough alloy ingot to create machine chassis. We will even have 1 tough alloy ingot left as we make the melter from the advanced plating that we got as a quest reward. We can put the melter down and then place 5 spectre coils on it. 1 ender pearl takes 24 ticks to be processed at 6 kRF per tick and gives us 1/4 of a resonant ender bucket. While block of ender pearls, that is made of 4 of them, requires 48 ticks to process at 4 kRF per tick, giving us a full bucket. So as you can see, the choice which recipe we should use is obvious. I did some things around the base to let my melter fully charge, so let's process 16 buckets of resonant ender. 16 buckets can be conveniently stored inside the fluid tank, which we can hook up to our smeltery. We can now throw in the rest of the components, and as you can see, now we can get our hands on a whole block of enderium. Enderium takes about 1,000 years to solidify, so let's actually speed this up with time in a bottle. Well, isn't this exciting? Because we can finally craft 4 ender chests right away, and we actually have resources to make more. However, we will wait to do that because same resources could be used to craft ender tanks, which allow to transfer fluids in the same way as ender chests do for items, as well as these ender pouches, which if color coded correctly, allow you to access ender chests from your inventory. And in fact, let's craft one of these ender pouches right now. Ender pouches are quite a bit cheaper compared to the ender chest because you don't need a vanilla ender chest in the middle, that's one, and second, you actually need ender nugget instead of enderium nugget. And ender ingots can be very easily made from ender dust and platinum ingots, so we can easily get ourselves an ender pouch. Let's see how it all works. We can put the ender chest down, and on top you can see 3 buttons which are currently color coded white. We can craft some lime dye using the dye essence which we collect from our farm, and then we can use this dye separately on each of the 3 buttons. We can then pick the ender pouch itself and shift right click on top of the ender chest to color code the ender pouch lime color. Now, if we open the pouch and place something inside, it immediately appears inside the ender chest. We can also go one step further and set a system like this. We have XNet controller, the lime coded ender chest, as well as 5 steel boxes. Of course, the cables are neatly hidden above using the facades. And the system is set such that if in my I collect some items, I can open my ender pouch, put them items in, and as you can see they are disappearing from the ender chest and appearing inside the steel storage boxes to the right. The boxes are prioritized from left to right, meaning first it will fill this box, then this box, and so on. So then I get back to my base after my travels and I can clean all of these boxes and sort the items. Of course, at some point we will have automated sorting system, but for now this will do. The only problem I see with this is now it will be much harder for me to stop exploring and get back to my base because I have now huge storage traveling with me. But of course, remote inventory dump is just an icing on a cake. I believe that the main purpose of the ender chest is transport remotely produced items back to the base. For example, here I have an ender chest with all 3 buttons colored blue connected to the XNet system, where I have created a special channel number 4, which grabs all of the final product of this site and then puts them inside the ender chest. I have also set this additional channel, channel number 3, to deal with intermediate products. In this case we have just 1, blocks of iron, and this is because the iron is converted into steel inside the blast furnace, so it has to have a higher priority than putting the iron back in our chest otherwise the blast furnace production will stop. Back at the base, we have a single connector that connects a similarly colored blue ender chest with another XNet controller and the drawer controller. The drawer controller is hooked up to our wall of drawers over here, and I actually expanded it by adding one more layer out back. So now if we need a couple blocks of steel, for example, we can grab it right here at the base instead of walking way over there to get it from the steel production site. There is another place where it would be useful to have automated extraction of results to the base. And this is our sifting building, where we make copper, tin, redstone, and various products of crushed and stone sifting. However, I should have rather said that we used to make tin and copper in this building, because as you can see right now, the recipe that we set up back in episode 11 is not working anymore. And this is because back in episode 11, as you can see over at the top, the recipe was different. And with updated version, it has changed. Now, if you look up the recipe for the copper ore, the hint for the copper ore piece will say that you have to burn several copper ore pieces in a seared stone to get the copper ore. Here is how it works in practice. We can grab a bucket of seared stone, and of course seared stone can be made inside the smeltery by smelting regular stone at pretty low temperature. Then we deposit the seared stone in this opening right here, and we throw a copper ore piece into it. And as you can see, the copper ore piece burned and nothing happened. So let's throw another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And now you can see it transformed into the copper ore, which we can mine. So in my mind, this means that this number 3 you can see here is just an average, and in reality there is a distribution. You never know in advance how many ore pieces you need to throw into the sear stone in order to get the ore. So now the question is, as in many cases in this pack, how do we automate it? Consider this setup over here. It is pretty simple, and most of the components of this setup I have covered in my previous episodes. It all starts with this iron drum of molten seared stone, and I will show you later where I got this drum from. Next thing you'll see is ME fluid import bus and then ME fluid formation plane. I have discussed these two components of AE2 system in my episode 12, and in terms of recipe, you can see that the regular import bus and the fluid import bus have the only difference into additional lapis lazuli for the fluid one. Same goes for the plane, where a simple formation plane doesn't have a blue dye and a fluid formation plane does. Both components are powered of course by the energy acceptor. You can see the cable leading to them. Import bus grabs the seared stone from the tank and then sends it into the ME fluid formation plane, because there is no other way to store this fluid in the AE2 system. As you can see, the fluid formation plane places the fluid constantly and rather quickly, and as soon as it does so, this sensor, which is set to detect the fluid behind it, in this case seared stone specifically, as soon as this sensor sees the fluid, it sends the redstone signal directly into this redstone proxy from XNet. Redstone proxy has a pretty simple recipe with 4 soot covered redstone and a facade in the middle, and as you can see from the tooltip, XNet can connect to this block and read the redstone signal which is supplied to it. With the redstone proxy sensing the presence of the sear stone, we can connect it to the XNet, and inside the controller we can create a special redstone channel. You can see the color is red, and in this channel for the redstone proxy we can set it into the sensor mode, so we are checking what the proxy is doing. We're checking its redstone signal, and by the way, the other options are checking how many items are in the container, or how much fluid is in a tank, or how much energy is in the battery. But in our case, we're sensing the amount of redstone the redstone proxy is outputting. We're checking if it is equal to 15, and if it's so, then we output color red. The next thing in our setup is Iron Dropper, and the Iron Dropper is basically upgraded version of Vanilla Dropper and has iron instead of stone in the recipe. And the main advantage of the Iron Dropper comes from the fact that it can eject items continuously while it is powered. So inside our controller in the redstone channel, we now can set the Iron Dropper site to output redstone signal of a value of 15 as soon as color red is on, and we know that the color red will be on if the sensor on the redstone proxy detects any seared stone. So the dropper will drop the copper pieces into the seared stone and will burn them. Eventually the seared stone will turn into the copper ore, and in that case the annihilation plane, which is annihilation plane for the items, which I also discussed in episode 12, will harvest this block and send it into this ME chest, and currently this ME chest is partitioned to only collect the copper ore. Now that you know how this setup is functioning, let's throw in some ore and see it in action. As you can see, the conversion process is rather fast, and in terms of the energy, this setup doesn't require much. I believe it could have run on one Spectre coil over there, but I am also powering the XNet controller with the second one. So these are the essentials. Now let's adapt this setup for the sifting building. And this is how this setup could look like. This is exactly same setup, except I replaced the drum with a Certus quartz tank. I moved the energy acceptor in order to power two of these at the same time, and obviously the controller is missing because I control this using the main controller for the sifting building. But so let me show you how I changed the sifting building in order to enable a setup like this. As we enter the sifting building, you can immediately see that it looks very different compared to what it looked like back in episode 11 when I introduced it. The first thing you can see is the absence of heated redstone generation and magmatic generation, and this is because in terms of the power, I have replaced these by 3 advanced solar generators I placed on a building, together with this battery array next to them and the supplementary Spectre coils that produce a portion of the solar array power at night. I can actually power the building without the sun. The other change I made to the building is putting these 2 huge smelteries on the roof of it. These smelteries smelt cobblestone into a seared stone, and I have 2 of them because we need a lot for the ore production, but I generated by using cobblestone generator, which pushes the cobblestone into the smeltery, and then the results are stored in the iron drums before being sent into the quartz Certus tanks for the ore production. The main change, of course, is the ore generation through the seared redstone, and I have done a couple of these. So on level 1 we have redstone and copper. On the next level we have apatite and tin, and on the last level, where we are sifting through crushed endstone, I have uranium ore pieces, and so I made uranium ore generator. If we go up a level for a second, you will see that sifting through white sand doesn't only give us tin ore pieces and apatite essence, we also get Certus quartz seeds and nether quartz seeds. Back in episode 12, we have figured out the way to convert from the seeds into the pure versions of the crystals using this crystal growth chamber. So what I've done is created a separate red-colored XNet network with a controller over here, which allows these crystals to happily grow and then throw them into these 2 containers. Another addition to the sifting building comes from the endstone generating part. I have shown before how I generate my endstone from sandstone, and I'm storing this as a double compressed version inside this compacted drawer. Well, I have added advanced blue connector, and advanced connectors allow you to extract from the top. So I'm extracting this double compressed sandstone, and then I have this line of XNet cable which goes way over there into my sifting building. Inside, I store the double compressed sandstone inside the drawer, which is easily accessible and is right next to my auto sifter. Also, from that drawer, I extracted using import bus and deposited into the world using formation plane from AE2. So now let's take a look. I can break this double compressed sandstone with my skystone sledgehammer that has smashing 2 on it. When I do so, it's getting converted into the crushed sandstone and immediately collected with the sander hopper and deposited for the sifting. I can do it again and it's getting converted again and deposited. So you can see this is very nice little way for me to speed up the conversion of the endstone into the crushed version in mass. However, I'm envisioning, and I specifically designed this system for this, in the future we will probably have robots doing the same thing I do right now manually. Ultimately, the main output of the sifting building is deposited on the main level into one of these 7 storage drawers over here, so I can get all of my materials in one place. And this is also the place where I have put my ender chest. It is similarly colored with all blue buttons as the one I showed you before, and it is hooked up to again a separate red colored XNet network into this controller. And the reason for the separate network I have is that some of the items, like for example redstone, is produced in such vast quantities that I simply don't need this much at my base. And so what I've done in the controller, I have created these signals for each of the levers, which you can see on top of my drawers. And if I flip the lever, for example, for the apatite, as you can see, the amount of materials here starts decreasing. And back at my base, you can see the apatite drawer is quickly filling with apatite. So by using this separate XNet network, I can decide which items I send back home using Ender Chest and which items I keep storing at the Sifting building, because doing so obviously stops the ore production, so I conserve the seared stone for other things I can do in this building. I am really proud of what is accomplished here with the Sifting building, because now we have a lot of starter materials which we can use to build amazing setups away from our base and then send the results back home using Ender Chest seamlessly and automatically. So we can mark the Ender Chests complete on our progress board, and I'm really looking forward to talk to you about computers next time. This episode turned out to be a little bit longer than usual, but this is because I wanted to tell the full story of the amazing Ender Chest in its entirety. The episode is also released after a rather long break in the series, and this is simply because I have my beautiful family that I love to spend time with, and also a job that keeps us warm and fed. But all this time the series was always on my mind, and I keep chipping at it when I can carve out a little bit of time for it. It is still amazing, really amazing, to have 891 of you subscribed and tuned in, so I can share this amazing experience with you. You have always been kind and supportive to me, and I hope that the large break did not deter you from the adventure. I would like to wish a happy new year to everyone still watching. May the new year bring you joy and success in all your endeavors. I certainly hope to come back at you with more of my adventures as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Same place.